So this is a little chart I made based on my experience at Dreamworks. While I was at Dreamworks, I learned that there's different contrasts in colors within your scenes. Now, there's tricks you can actually apply to any one of your comic pages that you are having trouble separating foreground and background or middle ground or point of interest. Now, I've always dreamt about making a video called The Contrast of Coloring, or it could even be called Everything I Learned About Coloring While Working at Dreamworks Animation as a VizDev artist. Anyway, this is kind of what it boils down to. But before we move on, I just want to invite you guys to join the Comics Classroom Incubator. I have a special promotion right now. That's where all this content is coming from. Right now, you can get over 20 hours of videos just like this one for the low price of $97. This is a combination of everything I've learned while making comics and teaching comics. And you can also join this YouTube channel if you want to add an even deeper discount for $24.99 a month. Cancel anytime. You have access to all 20 hours. And I'll be adding things as we go. Just take advantage of this offer now because it might disappear in a couple months. So we all know that you have separation between black and white. That's the most basic. If you have a black background and the character in the foreground is illuminated so that he's white, right? That separates the two and it's easy. But what if you don't have a black background? Well, there's other ways, there's other tools you can use to separate out the two. So say they're inked the same quality, the same level. Well, you can differentiate the foreground, middle, and background or the point of interest with the hue. So on the right-hand side, we have the hue. You can dial around the hue so that all your background areas are blue and all your foreground areas are reds, right? So that's a way to pop things out and separate things. It's another contrast within your scene. Now there's another contrast that is saturation. This is a way to separate out things. If you want a foreground element to kind of blend away a little bit, you can desaturate it, push it more towards gray, and then the thing you want people to focus on in the distance is a real saturated color. Maybe it's your main character. He's very saturated amongst gray. Okay? Now there's another thing you can look at and think about. It's the temperature. So a cool versus a warm color. Now this can be really, really subtle, and you can do this within grays, you can do this within any color. It's how the colors meet up to each other. So you can do this within just a range of cool colors. What color is warmer amongst those cool colors? What color, if you have a scene that's in fire, maybe they're all warm colors. Well, maybe there's a slightly cooler version of a color in that scene so that your eyeball goes and gets drawn to that. Or maybe to separate the foreground from the background. Temperature is a big, big deal, okay? Now there's another thing that you don't really talk about much with coloring because it's not necessarily color, but it really heavily impacts how things get separated, and that is the detail. The more detail you have, the more your eye is drawn to that detail. So if you want your background to be the thing everyone's focused at, make that very detailed and have the foreground simple, or vice versa. If you want the character to be the thing that everyone's focused on in this rich background, make the character more detailed and more contrasty with these little bits of detail that you're adding to him, and it will draw people's eyes to that detail. That contrast in detail. Make sense? You can move people's eyes around the page just by how much detail you put into places. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the sharpness. This is another way, and it's usually done more in cinematography with film, but you can also apply this to your comic. You can actually have things be blurred out in the backgrounds or in the foregrounds to control the depth, to make sure that you are separating these backgrounds from foregrounds, or to lead your eye back and forth. Okay? Now, so any scene you have, you can use any of these 6 contrasts to help push your eye around the scene. So next time you're on a scene and you're stuck and you don't know how to make things read and pop out in the foreground or background or the main character amongst detail, all you have to do is you can apply 1 or 2 of these concepts to your scene to help pop things out. Now, if you want, you can use all of these things within a scene to help pop it out. But really, this is such a huge concept with coloring beautiful viz dev art and coloring in general, is just having all these different tools in your belt whenever you need something to pop a certain way. Say you have a scene that has to be all gray. Well, you have other things that you can do. You could actually use temperature within a gray scene, and it's just so subtle that no one will really understand what you're doing, but having a hint of blue in some of the grays versus a hint of red, it will still feel like a gray scene, but you'll have some separation. You can use the sharpness, you can use the detail, you can use black and white or the saturation within a gray image. The further it goes back, the more it's washed out and saturated and right in this middle gray tone. The more it comes to the foreground, the more hard black and white it is. You catch what I'm saying here? Now, there's a lot of different ways to break this down. For instance, saturation could be viewed a lot of different ways. Temperature could be broken down differently. But this has been really, really helpful for me in trying to get my pages to pop, to really sing, to really stand out, and to have a color palette and really makes it clear where you should follow with your eyes. So if you get stuck, try some of these techniques. And if you want to see more of this, then please join Jason Brubaker's Comics Classroom. You can get it here on YouTube for $24.99 a month. Cancel anytime, access to 20 hours of all my classroom videos about making comics and selling them and publishing them, and even bonus videos. These classes would cost hundreds of dollars in the past, but for now I have a deep discount for anyone who needs help getting started with their comic. And you can also grab it on Gumroad right now for $97 while this promotion lasts. Grab it now because I don't know how much longer I'll have it at this price, and all the links are in the description.